Hello and welcome to a humble Highland home. Thank you so much for joining me here in the Polytunnel today. I've got some planting to do in here today and I'm trying to make best use of the space in here. But first I need to weed out today's crop of fireweed shoots that are appearing on a daily basis at the moment. Fireweed is an edible wild food with many nutritional benefits. I'll link a video in the description below where I go into the different ways that I use it. Fireweed spreads very easily by seed or by rhizomes underground like this one. I manage the ones that I don't want by pulling them out as soon as they appear, especially here in the Polytunnel. And at this time of year, there are loads of them. If I did want to harvest them for eating, I could use them in a stir fry, or I could use them just like an asparagus. But as always, remember to do your own research and always forage responsibly. Don't mind me, Baloo, I'll just weed around you. Now the beds are all clear of weeds, I can move on to planting out some red and white onion sets that I've had started in cells, just to give them a wee head start. Onion sets are just small onions that have gone through their first year of growth. Onions are biannual, so they wouldn't go to seed until it's been through a cold snap, and then it would go to seed in its second year. So that's why I'm planting the onion sets in the Polytunnel just now, as we're not past our estimated last frost date. And I don't want to risk them going to seed if we do have a sudden cold snap. Now the onions that I'm growing from seed are still nice and cosy in the greenhouse, and they won't get planted out until it warms up outside. I have two varieties of onion set. One is a white onion called Sturon, and the other is a red onion called Red Baron. One of the ways that I try to make the most of the space here in the Polytunnel is by interplanting crops. So I'm planting the onion sets in between the overwintered lettuce so that they can grow on as I'm cropping the lettuce, and then once the lettuce is finished, that I will then cut them off and allow the onions to continue to grow. To maximise the space even more, I'm going to add a second interplanting. Once the lettuce comes out, I will add a row of carrots in between the onions, so as we harvest the onions, the carrots will then grow on. And a secondary benefit, the strong onion smell will also protect the carrots from things like the carrot fly. Next, I'm planting out some radish that I started earlier in module trays, just to give them a wee head start. And this is the start of my succession planting of radish throughout the growing season, as I really like radish, especially stir-fried or roasted. I have a mix of varieties here. One is called Saxa 2, another is French Breakfast, another China Rose and Cherry Belle, and they're all growing where the tomatoes will be later in June. Now that these are planted out and the weather is starting to warm up a little bit, I will direct sow some radish seeds so that we always have a continuous supply. Interplanting crops is one of the reasons why I like to plant in rows, and it's the same idea with the garlic that I planted in autumn of last year. So now that it's starting to warm up and the garlic is growing well, I'm planting 2 rows of carrots in between the rows of garlic. So as the garlic becomes ready to harvest, the carrots will have germinated and grown to a height that will benefit from gaining the extra space and light once the garlic are then removed. And last year I even managed to squeeze in a crop of brassicas that I'd potted on to plant after the carrots as larger plants, so they didn't take as long to grow on. The variety that I'm growing in between the garlic on this side of the polytunnel is called Autumn King, which has worked for me for quite a few years now. To plant my carrot seeds, I like to make just a small groove in the soil, just using my dibber or a trowel. Then I like to water well before adding the seeds. Then once I've added the seeds, I just cover them over with the soil at the sides. They don't need to be very deep because they're only tiny seeds. And this is why I water the rows before planting the seeds, as if you water afterwards, the seed could be at risk of washing away and go too deep, so the seed doesn't have enough energy to then germinate. And the carrot seeds that I'm planting at this side of the pathway are a variety called Early Nantes 2. And lastly, I'm planting some peas in the guttering. This worked really well for me last year, so I'm going to be doing it again this year. For me, using the guttering is the best use of space in here, and it also adds some protection from mice, as mice do love a nice pea seed. Two different ways to help with germination of the peas. I could use either just to scratch the side of the pea, which then allows the water to soak in quicker, or I could just soak the peas before planting in water, and soaking the peas I've found is the quickest option. The main crop of peas that I'm growing this year is a variety called Kelvedon Wonder. Spacing the peas out so the peas have got room to grow their roots, and it'll make it easier when it comes to planting them outside. These seeds are a mix of varieties from home seed that I'm going to use for pea sprouts. So I'm going to plant them very close together, as they don't need as much space as what the peas do when they're going to be planted outside. I will be saving some seeds from this year's pea crop ready for next year. I always like to have some seeds in storage for a backup, just in case though. I wouldn't normally be putting any covers on at the moment, but we do have 2 kitty cats that are still mooching around, and sometimes they do like to have their fun in here. But as soon as the plants are more robust, or the cats start going out at night and sleep during the day, then I will just put the covers on just to protect them. So now that my plantings are done, this leaves me with some more space for the next batch of seedlings to come in onto the staging, and I can prick out more seedlings and plant my next batch of seeds, which will be courgettes and cucumbers. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Take care of yourselves and others, and I'll see you in the next video.